My wife sent me divorce papers. While I was away, then she panicked and called. Imagine this. One phone call. That's all it took to destroy everything I had worked for. My wife called, told me she was leaving me, and worse, it wasn't for another man, it was for someone else's life. If you think that's shocking, just wait until you hear what happened next. This is a story about betrayal, revenge, and the power to take back control when everything is on the line. Stay tuned, because trust me, you won't believe the twist. I stood in front of the conference room, my back straight, voice steady as I ran through the final slides of our groundbreaking merger presentation. The energy in the room was palpable. My team, clients, and partners were all hanging on every word, nodding along, their eyes locked on the figures flickering behind me. This was it. The deal that would secure the future of the company. I'd spent years building up to this moment, working late nights, grinding through every obstacle, making sacrifices. I was on top of the world, no doubt about it. But somewhere between the projected revenue and the optimistic forecasts, something gnawed at the pit of my stomach. My phone buzzed in my pocket, vibrating against the fabric of my suit like a warning bell. I tried to push it away, focusing on the numbers, the faces in front of me. I was in the middle of outlining the key benefits when the phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. My gut clenched. There was something urgent about it, something I couldn't ignore. I shifted my weight, glancing at my phone from the corner of my eye. It was Anna. I didn't want to answer. Not now. I was in the middle of making history. But as the vibrations continued, the tension in my chest grew. I stepped away, excusing myself, walking toward the back of the room as I answered. Hello? I kept my voice even, calm, professional. Her voice came through the line, but there was no warmth, no tenderness. It was flat, cold, something I hadn't heard from Anna in 7 years of marriage. I'm leaving you, she said, the words slicing through the air like a blade. I froze. The words didn't quite land at first. My mind was still on the projections, the merger, the room full of people waiting for me to lead them to success. This couldn't be real. What? I finally managed, my voice barely more than a whisper, confusion rising. I glanced back into the conference room, as if the world inside that room could somehow offer me an anchor. But it didn't. It kept spinning, as if nothing had changed. As if everything was fine. I'm pregnant, Anna continued, her words sharp, cutting through my fog of disbelief. It's Mark's child. I've sold the house and the car. Don't bother coming back. Her words were so casual, so indifferent, like she was talking about an inconvenience, something minor. But inside, it felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. Mark. The name hit me like a punch to the gut, and my hand trembled as I gripped the phone harder. The screen starting to blur in my vision. I should have been angry. Furious. But I felt nothing at first. Just numb. I could barely process the betrayal, the coldness of it all. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been lying to me? My heart was hammering in my chest now. I should have begged her to explain, demanded answers, but I didn't. Not a word of anger, not a plea for her to reconsider. Instead, I felt this strange sense of calm take over. I couldn't break down. Not here, not now. I had no idea what the hell was going on, but I would figure it out. I would get the truth. I would find a way to get control back. I wouldn't let her see how much it hurt. That would be my mistake. That was the last thing she expected. That was the mistake she wanted me to make. All right, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the chaos inside. That's it? I could hear her breathing on the other end, as if she was waiting for me to snap, to scream. But I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. I wouldn't let her see the tears, the rage. I wouldn't give her the victory. That's it, I said simply, and hung up. I took a long breath, staring at the phone in my hand, almost as if I could make sense of it if I just kept looking at it long enough. My hands were shaking. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, and walked back into the conference room, forcing myself to slip back into the role I had been playing minutes before. I didn't miss a beat. I picked up the slide remote and continued presenting, talking about revenue forecasts like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. My life had just been torn apart, and no one in that room had a clue. The rest of the presentation was a blur. My mind kept racing back to that phone call. Pregnant, Mark. The house. The car. It all hit me in waves, each detail crashing over me harder than the last. What the hell was going on? I didn't even know if I was angry, or just in shock. I needed to think. I needed to act. The flight back to my hotel was a haze. My body was on autopilot sitting in the seat, going through the motions, but my mind? My mind was racing. Anna. Mark. What had been going on behind my back? I kept going over every word she said, replaying the conversation like a broken record. Pregnant. Mark. Sold the house. How long had she been planning this? Had she been with him for months? Was everything a lie? Every moment of our marriage, was it all just fake? I couldn't let myself lose control. Not yet. I couldn't let the anger swallow me whole. I had to stay focused. I had to get a plan. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. She thought she had the upper hand. She thought she could walk away with everything, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. I wasn't going to crumble. I wasn't going to beg her to come back. I was going to get everything back, everything she tried to take from me, and make her pay for the years she spent lying to me. In the quiet of my hotel room, I sat down, staring out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. I couldn't afford to feel sorry for myself. I had too much to do. Too many things to plan. The game had just begun, and I was ready to play. I paced back and forth in my hotel room, the city lights below doing nothing to calm my mind. My hand gripped the edge of the window, and I watched the traffic move like a river of headlights, each one carrying someone far away from the mess I was stuck in. Anna had just dropped a bombshell on me, and I wasn't sure where the shrapnel was going to land. She'd left. She was pregnant with another man's child. And she'd already sold the house we had built together, the one we had planned our future in. And that wasn't even the worst part. She had done it all while I was miles away, thinking I was living the high life, working toward the next big deal. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had been so focused on my career, thinking I was doing the right thing by building our future. But what did it matter now? What did it mean when your entire world came crashing down with a few cold words over the phone? I could feel my chest tighten again, as the image of Anna's face flashed through my mind. It wasn't the look of someone who was hurting. No, her voice was detached, like she'd already processed everything. She had already moved on, and I was the one left scrambling to catch up. I needed answers. I needed to understand how this had happened. My mind raced back to the beginning of our marriage, to all the moments I had overlooked, the little things that hadn't quite felt right, the late nights she came home from work, the distractions, the silence that started creeping in. I had told myself it was nothing. I was too busy with my career, too caught up in building the life I thought we both wanted. But now, every little thing was suspect. I couldn't afford to just react emotionally. That was what Anna probably expected. She thought she could make her move, and I'd collapse under the weight of it. Well, she had no idea who she was dealing with. This wasn't just about protecting my assets, it was about restoring balance. It was about showing her that she couldn't walk away from this without consequences. I sat down at the desk, hands shaking as I opened my laptop. I could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me. The anger was there, simmering under the surface, but I couldn't afford to let it take over. I had to think. I had to act. And I wasn't going to make the mistake of rushing in without a plan. No, this wasn't going to be some messy, emotional fight. This was going to be calculated, strategic. Anna had made her move, but I would make mine when the time was right. I called my lawyer, Andrew. He was a straight shooter, never one to ask unnecessary questions. Andrew, I need you to freeze the sale of the house, I said, my voice steady, despite the turmoil swirling inside me. I don't care what she thinks she's doing. Block the sale. Now. There was a long pause on the other end, and I could tell Andrew was taking in the weight of my words. Are you okay? He asked, a hint of concern in his voice. I'm fine, I lied. I just need everything locked down. I don't want any surprises. Andrew's voice shifted to business mode. We'll block any transactions on the house deed immediately. What about the car? It's still in your name, right? Yes, I replied, more curtly than I intended. She can't sell it without my permission. I need you to make sure that doesn't happen, either. Got it, Andrew said. I'll take care of it. We'll have everything in place by morning. I ended the call and moved on to the next one. I had a financial advisor, Lisa, who had helped me keep my accounts in order for years. She didn't ask questions, she just got things done. Lisa, I began, trying to keep my voice level, freeze all joint accounts. No transfers, no withdrawals. I want everything locked down. Now, consider it done, she replied without hesitation. No one will touch anything without your approval. I felt a small sense of relief settle over me. The logistics were taken care of. At least my assets were protected. But what about the emotional fallout? What about Anna? What about Mark? I pushed those thoughts to the back of my mind for the time being. There was no room for emotion in this game. Not yet. I had to focus. I had to gather information. I needed to know who Mark was, what he wanted, and how long he had been involved with Anna. She hadn't said much, but the little details, the pregnancy, the house being sold, the coldness in her voice spoke volumes. She had planned this. She had planned to walk away from everything we had worked for, without a second thought. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I reached out to Liam, a private investigator I had used in the past for a few sensitive matters. Liam was sharp, efficient, and knew how to dig deep without leaving a trail. Liam, I need you to look into a guy named Mark Hume, I said, my voice taking on a harder edge. Find out everything you can. I don't care what it takes. Background, family, anything that can give me a lead on him. I need to know who the hell this guy is. I'll get right on it, Liam said, the determination in his voice matching my own. It'll take me a couple of days to dig through everything, but I'll keep you updated. I hung up, then sat back in my chair, staring out at the skyline. The anger was starting to build again, but I kept it under control. I wasn't going to give in to it. I had to be smarter than that. Anna might have thought she could get away with everything, but she had no idea what I was capable of. I spent the next few hours running through every possible scenario, every piece of information I had, trying to figure out how to use it all to my advantage. I thought about Mark. What was his game? Was he in this for money, or was it something else? And how had he managed to worm his way into Anna's life so completely? She hadn't just left me, she had torn apart everything we had built together, and I couldn't just sit back and let her get away with it. The night passed in a blur of calls and emails. I couldn't sleep. I didn't want to sleep. I had too much on my mind, too much to plan. But eventually, exhaustion crept in. I collapsed into bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I couldn't stop thinking about Anna, about how easily she had discarded me, how coldly she had made her decision. It was like I was a footnote in her life, something she could get rid of without a second thought. The next morning, I woke up early and checked my phone. A message from Liam popped up. I've found him, it read. Mark Hume. Background check is coming soon. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the information I needed to turn the tables. I picked up the phone and dialed Liam's number. What have you got? I asked, my voice low, urgent. I've got the basics, Liam said. He's been involved in a couple of shady business deals, nothing too big, but enough to raise red flags. He's got a history with women, seems like he's used them for money, then moved on when things got complicated. I'm digging deeper into his financials, but that's what I've got for now. I leaned back in my chair, processing the information. This guy was a con artist, just like I'd suspected. Anna had chosen poorly. But that didn't matter right now. What mattered was that I had the leverage I needed to take control. I wasn't going to let Mark get away with using Anna, not when I had a chance to destroy him first. I didn't say anything to Liam. I just hung up and sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle in. I had what I needed. Now, I just had to wait for the right moment to strike, and when that moment came, I wasn't going to miss. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about showing Anna that she couldn't just walk away from me, from everything we had. It was about proving that no one could use me, manipulate me, and get away with it. Not anymore. I was done being the victim. Now, it was my turn. Just when I thought I had it figured out, everything shifted. I started digging deeper, but who was the real threat here? Was it her, or was it the man who had wormed his way into our life? I want to know what you think. Do you think I should confront her right now or play the waiting game? Comment. 1 for confrontation, comment 2 for waiting it out. Let's see what you'd do. The days that followed were a blur, but my mind was razor sharp. focused on one thing, Mark. The more I learned about him, the more disgusted I became. Anna had fallen for a con artist, someone who had been using women for years, manipulating them for his own gain. And yet, there I was, left to pick up the pieces of a shattered life while she was off with him, thinking she could just erase everything we had. I couldn't let that happen. I had already lost so much, but I wasn't going to lose everything, not without a fight. The next few days felt like an endless stream of phone calls, meetings, and digging into Mark's life. Liam had been working tirelessly, pulling every thread he could find, unraveling Mark's history piece by piece. It wasn't long before the pattern started to form. Mark wasn't just a guy who had wormed his way into Anna's life. He was a predator, and Anna had walked right into his trap. He had a history of using women, draining their bank accounts, and then moving on when the money ran out. Anna was just another notch on his belt. Another woman he'd suckered in with promises of a better life. She hadn't even seen it coming. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the evidence on the table in front of me. Mark's history wasn't just full of failed relationships. No, it was full of lies, deception, and financial ruin. He'd taken everything from the women before Anna, leaving them with nothing. But Anna, she wasn't going to get away that easily. She had chosen him, yes. But now, she was going to pay for it. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. She thought she could just sell the house, leave, and start over with Mark. Well, she was wrong. I pulled up the bank statements, the credit reports, everything Liam had uncovered about Mark's dealings. The loans he had taken out in Anna's name, the credit card bills, the small purchases here and there that added up to a mountain of debt. Mark was bleeding her dry, and Anna didn't even realize it. She thought she was starting fresh, but all she had done was walk straight into the lion's den. And now, it was time for me to take control. I called Andrew, my lawyer, and laid it all out for him. I wanted to move fast. I wanted to get the house locked down, to make sure there was no way Anna could sell it without my signature. We need to stop her from making any more moves, I told him, my voice steady, but with an edge that I knew he could hear. She's trying to walk away from everything, and I won't let that happen. Understood, Andrew said, his voice firm. We'll take care of it. But I wasn't just stopping at the house. No, I was going to make sure that everything Anna thought she could take from me stayed right where it belonged. I wasn't about to let her run off with Mark and start a new life while I was left to pick up the pieces. It wasn't just the house. It was my dignity, my pride. It was everything I had worked for, everything I had given to this marriage. I pulled up my phone again, dialing Lisa, my financial advisor. Freeze all accounts, I said, my voice clipped, controlled. Make sure there are no withdrawals, no transfers. I want everything locked down, and I want it done quietly. No alerts, no warnings. Got it, she replied, without hesitation. Everything will be secured. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. The city was alive outside, but all I could see was the wreckage of my life. The betrayal, the lies, the way Anna had turned her back on everything we had. It made my stomach churn, but I wasn't going to let it break me. I had a plan now. I had all the information I needed. And when the time came, I would make my move. Mark was going to pay for what he had done, for what he had taken from me. And Anna? She would have to face the consequences of her choices. I wouldn't let her think she could just walk away from this unscathed. She had no idea how deep the hole she'd dug was. She thought she could take everything and leave me behind, but I wasn't going to let her. Not now. Not ever. I needed to know more about Mark. One needed to know everything. And that's when the next message came through from Liam. I've found his financials, the message read. Mark has been using Anna's accounts to fund his lifestyle. He's been making large purchases, draining her resources, and setting her up to fail. I've also found evidence that he's been in contact with another woman, using her for money as well. My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. This was the final piece of the puzzle. Mark wasn't just using Anna. He was using multiple women, bleeding them dry, and leaving them with nothing. And now, I had the proof. I wasn't just going to expose him to Anna. I was going to make sure he never had the chance to hurt anyone again. I sat up straight, feeling the anger rise in my chest, but I forced it down. There was no time for emotion, not yet. I had to stay focused. I had a plan, and I was about to execute it. Mark Hune was about to learn that no one plays games with Jacob Miller and gets away with it. Not anymore. The next few days felt like a relentless blur, but it was the kind of blur I welcomed. Every second was spent digging deeper, gathering information, and making sure the pieces I was collecting fit together. I couldn't afford to let this drag out. If I let my emotions take over, if I let my anger get in the way, I'd lose. I couldn't let Anna see that. She had already taken so much, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. The more I learned about Mark, the more disgusted I became. He wasn't just a random guy Anna had fallen for. No, he was a predator, a scam artist who had been using women for years. I couldn't believe Anna had fallen for him, and I couldn't help but feel the sting of betrayal with every detail that came to light. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been lying to me? Was I just a stepping stone in her life, someone to carry the weight while she found her way out? I didn't know, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But there was no time for self-pity. I had to move forward, and quickly. Liam had been working around the clock, pulling up Mark's financials, tracking his every move. The more we uncovered, the more I realized that Anna wasn't just dealing with a guy who was using her for a quick fling. No, Mark was systematically draining her resources. It wasn't just about love. It was about money, manipulation, and control. He had a history of using women's finances to fund his own lifestyle, then disappearing when they were left with nothing. Anna was just the latest victim, and now it was my turn to step in and make sure Mark didn't get away with it. I sat at my desk, staring at the numbers Liam had sent me. Mark had applied for multiple loans using Anna's name. Small amounts here and there, testing the waters. He'd siphoned money from her accounts without her even realizing it. This wasn't just some innocent affair. This was a con, and Anna had fallen for it. I felt the anger bubbling inside me, but I couldn't let it take control. Not yet. I had a plan, and I had to stick to it. I wasn't going to let Mark walk away from this unscathed. I called Andrew, my lawyer. I needed him to act fast. I want you to freeze all of Anna's assets. Block anything she tries to do with the house, with the car. I don't care if it's already in motion. I want it stopped now. Understood, Andrew said, and I could hear the professionalism in his voice. He didn't need any more details. He knew what I was asking. We'll take care of it. That was the easy part. The hard part was making sure Mark paid for what he had done. He thought he could walk in, take everything, and leave me with nothing. He thought he could destroy my life with Anna. Well, he was wrong. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Not now. Not ever. I started making more calls, putting the pieces into motion. I reached out to Lisa, my financial advisor. I need you to get in touch with the bank and stop any transfers Anna might try to make. Freeze the accounts. Make sure she doesn't have access to anything. No problem, Jacob, Lisa said. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she was picking up on my intensity. She didn't ask questions. She knew the stakes. I'll make sure everything is locked down. I ended the call and leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. My mind raced through the details: Mark, the loans, the money being funneled through Anna's accounts. It wasn't just a matter of protecting my assets. It was about sending a message. It was about showing Anna that she couldn't just tear apart everything we had built, without facing the consequences. I had a feeling Anna thought she could just walk away from this, without a second thought. She thought she could leave with Mark and start over, leaving me to pick up the pieces. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't going to let her have that. I wasn't going to be the one left picking up the mess. She thought I'd beg, that I'd crumble under the pressure, but I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. She'd underestimated me. She thought she had won, but I was just getting started. I thought about the confrontation that was coming. It was inevitable. There was no way Anna would let this go without a fight, but I wasn't worried. I had everything in place. I had the leverage. I had the truth. And when the time came, I would strike. I would make sure that Mark knew exactly who he was dealing with, and I would make sure Anna understood that there were consequences to her actions. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. It was about taking back what was mine, protecting my future, and making sure that no one, especially not Mark, could tear down everything I had worked for. The days felt like they were slipping away faster than I could keep up with. Liam had sent over more details about Mark's past, and the more I read, The clearer it became that Anna had walked right into a well-planned trap. Mark wasn't some random guy who swept her off her feet. No. He was a con artist, a skilled manipulator who had used the same routine with multiple women. I could feel the rage simmering beneath the surface, but I didn't let it break through. I couldn't. I wasn't about to fall apart. Not now. Not when I was this close to taking control back. I stood at the window of my hotel room, staring at the lights in the city below, my thoughts racing. Mark had been using Anna for months, draining her accounts, using her for his own selfish gain. He wasn't just a threat to me. He was a parasite, feeding off anyone who got too close. And now, Anna had thrown her lot in with him. She had no idea the storm that was coming for her. She thought she could walk away from everything we had, but I wasn't going to let that happen. Not while I still had a say in the matter. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and glanced at the screen. Another update from Liam. The investigation was moving quickly now. Liam had uncovered even more about Mark's finances, the small loans he had been taking out under Anna's name, and how he had been funneling money into his own accounts. Mark was sloppy. He thought he could get away with it, but he didn't realize who he was dealing with. Anna, she had been blinded by his charm, his lies. But I had something he didn't: strategy. And I was going to use that to turn the tables. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone to call Andrew, my lawyer. I had already given him instructions to lock down the house, but now I needed to tighten the screws. Andrew, I said, my voice calm but firm, I need you to start preparing the paperwork. I've got the evidence on Mark. I want to file everything, including the loans, the fraudulent transfers, everything. We need to hit him hard, and we need to hit him fast. Andrew was silent for a moment. Are you sure about this? This is going to get messy. I paused, feeling the weight of his words, but I couldn't back down now. It's too late for anything else. I want to make sure that when Mark realizes what's happening, he has no way out. We'll hit him with everything we've got. Understood, Andrew replied, his voice steady. I'll get started. But be prepared. This is going to be a fight. I hung up the phone and leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet of the room settle around me. The pieces were falling into place, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still missing something. Mark was a con artist, but he wasn't stupid. He had been getting away with this for a long time, so what was his next move? He had to know that the walls were closing in. He had to be getting ready to bolt. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let him escape. I'd spent my life planning, building, controlling my fate. I wasn't about to let some lowlife destroy everything I had worked for. I had to make sure that when the truth came out, Mark wouldn't have a chance to slip away unnoticed. This wasn't just about Anna. It was about me. It was about taking control of my life again. And making sure that no one, not Anna, not Mark, could strip me of that power. I went over the evidence again, checking the details, making sure everything was airtight. The loans, the money, the way Mark had used Anna's name to fund his own lifestyle. Every piece of information was a weapon, and I was getting ready to unleash them all. It wasn't just about destroying Mark. It was about destroying the illusion Anna had built around him. She thought he was her savior, her escape from the life we had built together. But in reality, he was just another man looking to take advantage of her. I sat in silence for a while, letting the weight of everything settle in. It was going to get ugly. I knew that. But I wasn't afraid of the fight. I had been in battles before, both in the boardroom and in my personal life. But this was different. This was personal. Anna had chosen Mark over me. She had betrayed me, and now she would see that there were consequences for that. And when it was over, when everything was laid bare, she would know that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. It was time to make my move. Time to take back control. I picked up my phone and called Lisa, my financial advisor. Freeze any and all transfers, I said. I don't want a single cent moving without my say-so. You got it, she said, and I could hear the professionalism in her voice. She wasn't asking questions. She was just doing what needed to be done. I set the phone down and stood up, walking over to the window again. The city below was alive, people rushing to and fro, oblivious to the war that was playing out just beneath the surface. I was ready. It was time for the next phase of my plan, and when it was over, Anna would know that you don't walk away from me without paying the price. I spent the next few hours feeling like a lion stalking its prey, waiting for the right moment to strike. The more I thought about everything about Anna, about Mark, about the lies I had lived for so long, the angrier I became. But anger wasn't going to do it. It wouldn't get me what I wanted. It wasn't about rage, not anymore. It was about control, about making sure that when the dust settled, I was the one standing, while Anna and Mark were buried in the consequences of their actions. I sat in the quiet of my hotel room, staring at the papers in front of me, the evidence all laid out. Every loan Mark had taken out in Anna's name, every fraudulent transaction, every cent he had stolen from her, from me. I couldn't just let this go. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about showing Anna that she couldn't just walk away without paying a price. She thought she could tear apart our life and leave me to pick up the pieces. She thought I would be the one left humiliated, broken, scrambling to pick up what was left. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I picked up the phone and dialed Andrew, my lawyer, again. He had been working hard to prepare everything for the legal battle I was about to launch. "Andrew, we're not waiting anymore," I said, my voice low but firm. "I need you to file the paperwork for the house and the financials. Let's hit them both at the same time. I want them to feel this." There was a brief pause on the other end. "Are you sure? This could get messy." "I'm sure," I replied. "It's time for this to end." I hung up and leaned back in my chair, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I had been methodical. I had been patient. But this was the moment everything changed. I wasn't just a victim in this story. I was the one writing the ending. It wasn't just about the house, the money, or even Mark. It was about proving to myself that I wouldn't let anyone strip me of my dignity. Anna had tried to tear down everything we had worked for, and she thought she could do it without consequence. But what she didn't understand was that I wasn't just a guy who would roll over and accept it. I had built my life from the ground up, and I wasn't about to let her, or Mark, take it all away. I stood up and paced around the room. There was a fire inside me now. Something that felt like it was bubbling just beneath the surface. I had been the one blindsided. The one left picking up the pieces while Anna went off with her new life. But she was about to learn that she couldn't just erase everything we had. She couldn't just walk away without facing the consequences. I turned toward the desk and started making more calls, setting everything in motion. I couldn't let Mark or Anna get away with what they had done. I was going to make sure they paid for it, every last cent, every lie, every deceit. The more I uncovered about Mark, the angrier I became. But I knew I had to keep my cool. The strategy was working. I just had to stay ahead of them. I had to be smarter than they were. By the time I finished my calls, I had a feeling that things were starting to snowball. I had locked down everything. I had the evidence. I had the leverage. And now, it was time to let Anna and Mark feel the full weight of what they had done. But there was still one thing left to do. I needed to confront Anna. I needed her to know that she couldn't just walk away from this. The next day, I set everything up. I had Andrew ready to go with the paperwork. Lisa had already frozen the accounts, and Liam had dug deep enough into Mark's past to make sure that I had everything I needed to expose him for what he was. I knew that Anna would try to make this messy. She would try to twist the narrative, to play the victim, but I wasn't going to let her. I had all the pieces. And when it was over, there would be no way for her to hide from the truth. It was time. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't about just taking back what was mine. This was about taking control of my life again. About making sure that when the dust settled, I would be the one who came out on top. Anna and Mark would both learn that you don't mess with me. Not without facing the consequences. And when I made my move, there would be no turning back. The moment I had been preparing for was finally here. It felt like the calm before the storm, and my hands were steady as I walked into the conference room where I had set up everything. My mind was focused. All the hard work one had done to secure my position was about to come to fruition. Everything I had been doing, the calls, the legal preparations, the financial freezing, the background checks, had led to this one moment. I wasn't just about to face Anna. No, this was bigger than that. This was about making her realize that she couldn't just tear apart my life and get away with it. Mark? He was about to get a wake-up call he'd never forget. I could feel the tension building in the air, as if the entire room was holding its breath. I had already made sure every piece of evidence was locked down. The house was off the market. The money was frozen. The moment I confronted Anna, The truth would come crashing down around her. I had already made sure of it. There was no escape for either of them. She could try to turn the story against me, but it wouldn't matter. She had underestimated me, thinking I was the weak one, the one who would crumble. But now, I had the upper hand, and I was going to make sure they felt it. I took a deep breath as I stood by the door, waiting for Anna to arrive. The silence in the room felt deafening. I checked my watch. It was almost time. My mind raced through the conversations we would have, the words I would use to make sure she knew exactly how much I knew. She thought she could walk away from everything without facing the consequences. But I wasn't going to let that happen. She didn't realize that the game had already changed, that the tables had already been turned. The door opened, and there she was. Anna. She walked in with that same air of confidence she always had, thinking she was in control, thinking she could still pull the strings. She didn't know how wrong she was. She took a seat, her eyes not quite meeting mine at first, as if she was waiting for me to speak. But I didn't rush it. I let the silence hang for a moment longer, just enough to make her uncomfortable. I wasn't going to let her think she had the upper hand anymore. "You look surprised to see me," I said, my voice steady. "I thought you might have expected this." Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. She knew something was wrong. I could see it in her face, in the way she sat up straighter, suddenly tense. But I wasn't going to let her control this moment. "What's going on, Jacob?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral, but I could hear the edge to it. She knew something had shifted, and she was trying to cover it up. But it was too late for that. "You really thought you could get away with it," I said, keeping my tone calm, like I was explaining something simple. "You thought you could just sell the house, take everything, and leave me behind. You thought I wouldn't find out about Mark. But I know everything." She stiffened, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape, but there was nowhere to run. She was trapped, and she knew it. "Jacob," she started, her voice shaky, but she didn't have the same confidence she used to. "You don't understand. This isn't what you think." "Oh, I understand more than you think," I said, leaning forward slightly, making sure she felt the weight of my words. "I know about Mark's loans, about the money you've been funneling into his pockets. I know you sold the house, thinking I wouldn't notice. But you were wrong." Her face paled, and for the first time in a long time, I saw real fear in her eyes. I could feel the rush of satisfaction rise in my chest, but I kept it in check. This wasn't about rubbing her face in it. This was about making her realize the truth, that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. She was caught in her own web of lies, and now, there was no way out. "You're making a mistake," she finally whispered, but her voice trembled, a far cry from the calm, confident tone she had when she walked in. "I was just trying to find happiness. Mark, he made me feel alive again. You were always so busy with work, always focused on your career. I needed someone who cared about me." I took a breath, forcing the anger back down. "You think that justifies what you did?" I said, my voice low but firm. "You think that because you were lonely you could tear apart everything we had? Everything I built? You made a choice, Anna. You chose him over me. And now, you're going to pay the price for it." I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. Not anymore. She had made her bed, and now she was going to lie in it. "I've already filed everything," I said, my voice hard. "The house, the money, the loans. It's all locked down. And when the truth comes out, you'll have nowhere to run." She looked at me then, her face a mixture of disbelief and fear. For the first time, she saw the person I had become. The man who wasn't going to let her destroy him without consequences. The man who had taken control of his life again, and wasn't about to let her walk away from it. The storm was coming for her, and she knew it. There was no escape. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up a hand to stop her. "It's too late, Anna. This is where it ends." I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut through with a knife. Anna was sitting there, trying to maintain her composure, but I could see the cracks forming, the slow unraveling of the person who had once been my wife. She wasn't the same woman I had married. No, she was someone else now. Someone who had thrown away everything for a man who wasn't worth a damn. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I kept it in check. There was no place for that now. I had a plan, and it was time to set it into motion. Do you think I'm just going to walk away from this? I asked, my voice cold, controlled. I watched her shift in her seat, her eyes flickering nervously. You've made a mess of everything, Anna. You've made your choices, and now it's time to face the consequences. She shook her head, the disbelief clear on her face. Jacob, please, she whispered, her voice trembling. You don't understand. I had to do this. Mark, he's been everything I needed. He made me feel wanted again. You were so busy with work, with everything. I felt so alone. The anger I had been holding back surged again, but I fought to keep it buried. It wasn't about her excuses. It wasn't about anything other than making her see the truth. She had made this choice, and now she had to live with it. You think that justifies what you did? I asked, leaning forward, my eyes locking onto hers. You think you can just destroy everything we had, everything I worked for, just because you felt lonely? This isn't some fairy tale, Anna. You didn't just fall in love with him. You sold me out. You sold our life out. You took everything, and now you're going to pay for it. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. She wasn't going to manipulate me with pity. I wasn't going to fall for it. I've already filed everything, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. The house is locked down, the finances are frozen. You can't touch a single thing without my permission. Everything you've done, everything you've taken, it's over. Mark won't be able to get away with this either. I'm going after him too. Her face went pale, and for the first time, I saw the realization hit her like a ton of bricks. She had thought she could just walk away, that she could run off with Mark and start over without facing the consequences. But she had underestimated me. She thought I would be the one left shattered, left behind. She thought I would just curl up and take it. But that wasn't who I was. Not anymore. You really thought you could get away with it, I said, my voice low, every word cutting through the air like a blade. But the truth is, you didn't just betray me. You betrayed yourself. You thought Mark was your escape, your solution. But he's a con artist, Anna. He's using you, just like he used every other woman before you. And when he's done with you, when he's taken everything he can, he'll leave you with nothing. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. No. I'm done listening to your excuses. This is about accountability. You're going to pay for what you've done. You can't just walk away from this, pretending it didn't happen. I stood up, pacing around the room, trying to shake the rage that threatened to boil over. You don't get to destroy everything, and just walk away. You don't get to break me and expect me to be okay with it. No. This is how it ends. I'm going to make sure you feel the weight of your actions. I'm going to make sure you understand the cost of betrayal. Anna's face crumpled, and for a moment, I almost felt a twinge of sympathy for her. But then I remembered everything she had taken from me, everything she had thrown away. She had broken our life, shattered our future, and there was no going back from that. I had to do this. I had to make sure she faced the truth. The door to the room clicked open, and Andrew stepped inside, the papers I had requested in his hands. We're ready, he said, his voice as calm as ever. But I could tell there was an edge to it, a sense of urgency. He knew this was coming to a head. I turned back to Anna, my heart pounding in my chest. But I knew I couldn't let it show. This is it, Anna, I said, my words slow and deliberate. You've made your choices. Now it's time for you to deal with the consequences. I looked at her one last time, my gaze steady, unwavering. And when it's over, you'll understand. You can't just destroy someone's life and expect to walk away unscathed. I stood there, watching Anna, as the weight of everything hung in the air. It wasn't just the betrayal anymore. It was the realization that nothing would ever be the same. The life we had built together was gone, shattered in an instant by the choices she had made. I had thought that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance to salvage something, but now I knew there was no going back. The illusion had crumbled. The woman I had loved had been replaced by someone else. Someone who thought she could just walk away without facing the consequences. But I wasn't about to let that happen. Not now, not ever. The silence between us was deafening, and I could see the panic in her eyes, the desperation she was trying to mask. She knew the game was over. She knew I had the upper hand, and I was going to make sure she understood that there was no way out of this. She had crossed a line, and now it was time for her to pay the price. Do you have any idea what you've done? I asked. my voice low, but controlled. You've destroyed everything. You've taken it all, the house, the life we built, the future we were supposed to share, and thrown it all away for him. For Mark. And for what? So he could use you like he's used every other woman before you? I watched her flinch at the mention of Mark's name, but I didn't let up. I couldn't. I had spent too much time collecting the pieces of this broken life. Too much time preparing for this moment. I wasn't going to let her worm her way out of it, with excuses or tears. You think this is just about the money, about the house? I continued, my voice gaining strength with every word. It's not. It's about everything you've stolen from me. It's about my dignity, my trust, my future. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed yourself, Anna. And now you have to deal with the fallout. I could see her shaking, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for a way out. But there was no escape. She had already made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. No amount of pleading, no amount of regret could change what had already been done. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of remorse cross her face. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She realized the magnitude of what she had done. And yet, it wasn't enough. It didn't matter how sorry she was. The damage had been done, and the consequences were inevitable. I've already taken the necessary steps. Anna, I said, my voice steady, but firm. The house is locked down, the accounts are frozen. You can't get a single penny without my permission. And Mark, I'm going after him too. You can't hide behind him anymore. You can't hide behind your excuses. The truth is out, and now it's time for you to face it. Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't flinch. I had been through the worst of it already. I had weathered the storm. And now it was time for her to feel the full weight of her actions. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered, her voice breaking. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought Mark was the answer. I was just trying to be happy, Jacob. You didn't see me anymore. You didn't care. I took a step toward her, closing the distance between us. I could feel the anger rising again, but I forced it down. There was no place for it now. This was about the bigger picture. This was about showing her that her actions had consequences she couldn't just walk away from. You were never about finding happiness, Anna, I said, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. You were looking for a way out. You didn't just want someone to make you happy. You wanted someone to make you feel important. You wanted someone to fill the void you created, but you didn't stop to think about the damage you were doing. You didn't stop to think about what you were destroying. I paused for a moment, letting the weight of my words sink in. But now it's over. I'm not the man I was when you left. I've moved on. I've rebuilt. And you? You're left with the wreckage of your choices. Her face crumpled as the tears began to fall, but I didn't offer her any sympathy. I had been the one left behind, the one who had picked up the pieces while she ran off with Mark. Now it was time for her to face what she had done. I could see her breaking, but it wasn't enough. The trust was gone. The love was gone. There was nothing left for us. There was nothing left to fix. I've already filed everything, I said, my voice unwavering. The divorce papers are in motion. The assets are locked down. There's no running from this. There's no hiding from the truth. You thought you could walk away from me, from everything we had, and start over with him. But you were wrong. She shook her head, as if in disbelief, but I knew it was the shock of the reality sinking in. She had thought that once she left, it would be over. She had thought that once she was with Mark, she could erase everything and start fresh. But she had underestimated me. She had underestimated the lengths I would go to protect what was mine. I'm done with this, I said, my voice final, unwavering. You made your choice. You chose him over me. And now you'll have to live with the consequences. But don't expect me to feel sorry for you. You made this bed, and now you'll lie in it. With those final words, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving Anna behind. The moment had come. The final blow had been struck. And as I walked away, I knew it was over. The chapter of my life that had been filled with lies, betrayal, and pain was finally closing. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe again. Now that you've heard it all, it's time for you to make your judgment. I took back everything, but did I win, or did the damage go too deep? The truth always has a price. Did I pay it, or did she? The ending will shock you. What's your final call? Do you think I did the right thing, or should I have taken another path? Drop your thoughts below, you won't want to miss this. In the end, I learned the hard way that betrayal doesn't just break relationships. It breaks trust, the foundation of everything. You can't let someone take you for granted. Whether in marriage, business, or life. If you don't protect your own dignity and stand up for what you've built, someone will come along and try to destroy it. But here's the thing, you can't let them. No one should have the power to tear you down unless you give them that power. Hold on to your integrity, take control, and don't let anyone walk all over you no matter who they are.